What's up, friends? Welcome into Rock Chalk Sports here at Kansas Nation with Dan Courtwright. I am Sean Kellerman, our state-of-the-art studio here, downtown Lawrence on Mass Street. Appreciate you joining us for this Thursday edition of Rock Chalk Sports. Tomorrow, we're going to break down KU and Iowa State, another top 10 matchup for Kansas basketball. Not too often that Kansas faced two top 5 teams in the same week, but that's the situation that we have after the big Monday victory over number 1 Arizona. And then later this season, if the teams are still ranked in the top 25, Arizona and Houston, we're going to have this situation again. But yeah, excited to see how this Jayhawk team is performing as they've won 8 straight in Big 12 play. Here in the opening segment, we're actually going to start with some breaking news, if you will, regarding this 25-26 Kansas season as it relates to a special documentary just came out a little bit earlier today. Dan will break that down for you here in the open. Next segment, we're going to be joined by the voice of the Kansas Jayhawks here in studio, Brian Hanni. He'll break down the emotional, unbelievably memorable victory over Arizona from Monday in the Fog. Talk about some of the things that he likes, Iowa State preview, and perhaps some postseason thoughts from Brian Hanni. Following that, we are going to be talking a little KU baseball and maybe fit in some bracketology chatter as well. We talked about how ESPN doesn't quite update it as often as we would like, but CBS Sports has updated it, and some teams have gone down this week. So we'll get into that. A little bit later in the show, we're going to be joined by another special guest, Derek Johnson from Locked On Jayhawks. He will come on via Zoom. Haven't talked to him yet this basketball season, so he'll break down some numbers and some things that he likes, maybe doesn't like regarding the Jayhawks and their postseason prospects. We heard from Bill Self a little bit earlier today at Allen Fieldhouse. You'll hear part 1 of that press conference today following our conversation with Derek, and then we'll close the show talking about people drinking that Tang, or maybe not drinking that Tang over in the Little Apple. Disastrous loss for K-State in a season chock full of them last night to Cincinnati, 91-62, and some interesting words from their head ball coach.
Are you still high on Cincinnati, though?
Why not?
Why?
Right?
Why not? Right?
Dan Skillings isn't there, though, so that
I'm
bumps
low
me
on
out.
Cincinnati because it's way funnier.
I mean, they're 13-12. They are certainly not a top-tier Big 12 team. But, yeah, terrible look for K-State. And perhaps some Big 12 talk as well. So we'll get into that throughout this show. First, Dan, tell us about Crown Automotive, as Miles Schneier and his team are first partners here at Kansas Nation.
Yeah, I'd love to tell you about Crown Automotive. Crown Automotive here in Lawrence on South Iowa Street. They will get you in the car that fits your lifestyle. A whole line of new Toyotas, new Volkswagens, and a whole line of used cars as well. If Toyotas and Volkswagens aren't your thing, I don't know why they wouldn't be, because they're two of the best cars in terms of longevity, in terms of, emissions, in terms of family-friendly cars. Those are the cars that you want. But if those aren't your things, they have a lot of used cars as well. Super friendly sales staff. They will treat you right. So check out Crown Automotive. CrownMotorsVW.com, also CrownAutomotive.com. So be sure to check that out. Miles Schneier, Citizen of the Year in Lawrence. Incredible philanthropist and a great partner here at Kansas Nation.
Yeah, I really appreciate them. And we want to get into this news. We weren't sure what we wanted to talk about in the open today. Yesterday, we talked about the Big 12 tournament news as it relates to the glass floor surfaces with LED that they're going to have at both the men's and women's Phillips 66 Big 12 championship. But then this came out a little bit earlier today, Dan. Paramount Plus going to have a documentary following March Madness, interestingly enough, talking about the season for both Kansas and Michigan. What information can you give us on this?
Yeah, so this is from Paramount Plus, ParamountPressExpress.com, if you will. Paramount Plus today announced a new 4-part docuseries called Made for March. It's going to debut on Paramount Plus Saturday, April 4th. I believe the national championship is on the 6th. Is that correct?
Okay.
So it's going to come out 2 days before the national championship.
That's better than I was worried it was going to be right after. I'm like, that's kind of, but yeah, nice little build up.
Yeah, nice little build up. It's not entirely after basketball season, so people are still going to be amped up for it. So again, it's going to be previewing on Saturday, April 4th, chronicling 2 of college basketball's most renowned programs, Michigan and Kansas. That's why we're talking about this. The season in their bid for the national championship series is going to feature unprecedented off-court access, exclusive game footage, and interviews and coverage of key regular season, conference, and postseason matchups in the Big 12 and the Big 10. You think that KU Arizona game is going to be highlighted in there?
I would think so.
I would imagine it would be. This is for the first time. Cameras follow both teams across an entire season, capturing the intensity, pressure, and passion on the road and through the postseason. Here's a schedule in terms of when these are going to release. It'll release on Paramount Plus, and then it will air on CBS as well. So if you don't have Paramount Plus, like I do because I'm broke, maybe I might. Should I just buy Paramount? Maybe I can get like a member.
Maybe CC will buy a subscription for you.
Maybe that would be great. I am using his Peacock to watch all my Winter Olympics coverage. I bet you I can get like a 7-day free trial for this, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Or something. Well, I don't know. I know the whole point of it is to get people to buy Paramount Plus. But again, if you want to make money, don't go into Sports Talk Radio. Saturday, April 4th is going to be premiering on Paramount Plus, and then it'll be on CBS from noon to 1 o'clock. Episode 2 is going to be airing Sunday, April 5th, as well as Episode 3. That's going to be Episode 2 is from 4:30 to 5:30, and this is Eastern time. So this is 3:30 to 4:30 Central Time. That's Episode 2. And then also on Sunday, it's going to be from 4:30 to 5:30 Central Time. And then Episode 4 is going to be April 18th from noon to 1 o'clock Central Time. I would imagine Episode 4 is going to kind of cover the entirety of, March Madness. If one of these teams, hopefully one of these teams, i.e. Kansas, is going to be in the national championship game, hopefully win the national championship game, obviously have some coverage afterwards as well. So that would obviously be incredible. But this is really cool. I like this a lot. Sean, I was talking about this with you off air. We go to everything. We go to every single press conference. I actually missed my first press conference of the year today because I had a meeting with a client. I haven't seen any Paramount Plus cameras anywhere.
I know, like maybe somebody's doing it behind the scenes, or this is a situation where it's obviously a big deal. Paramount Plus, they perhaps could get exclusive access,
and that's fair.
But yeah, I'm very interested. Obviously, people love this behind the scenes, off court stuff, and two massive brands. Michigan has been in the top. Let's see, I think they were maybe number 6 in the preseason poll or something like that, maybe number 7, but they've been in the top 2 all season since. Their only loss was a home loss to Wisconsin. And last night, actually, they were down relatively big to Northwestern and Evanston, came back and won, completely flipped the script. They won by 12 in that game, but they're just loaded with NBA talent, and we are very confident that Kansas is as well. Michigan, led by second-year head coach Dusty May. Dusty May came over from Florida Atlantic. Remember, he led Florida Atlantic to the Final Four and then decided to stay after that for a season, and then Michigan came calling, and obviously a really attractive option for him. Kansas, they were, unranked 8 games ago. Now KU is top 10 in the country, so this makes it a little bit more attractive that Kansas has completely turned around what was a rough start by Kansas standards to the season. I remember reading articles after the loss to West Virginia about how Kansas is broken. Kansas does not have anything. The last 2 years have been disappointing. What's the future going to look like? Well, Bill Self has said, whoa, hang on. We're going to be just fine. And the Kansas Jayhawks have put together an incredible stretch where they've got victories over 4 top 15 teams. It's not just that they've won 8 straight. You've got victory over number 1, victory over number 2, and 2 victories over teams who are ranked number 13 in this 8-game stretch. And you've been doing it when Darren Peterson's been in and out of the lineup. Coach Self, we haven't talked about this enough, needs to be Big 12 Coach of the Year at this point, and certainly should be top 2, 3 for National Coach of the Year because he's been coaching 2 different teams, the team with Darren Peterson and the team without Darren Peterson, and Kansas just keeps winning. So unbelievable job by Coach Self. He's had a career full of incredible coaching jobs. But, excited to see KU and Michigan be at the forefront, and I'll be pumped. I'll be locked in. Like you said, hopefully both these teams are still playing on April 4th.
That's the thing. Obviously, you certainly hope that's the case because I believe that's going to be the Final Four Final Four is on Saturday, right?
Yep. Final Four is
Four's
the
on
4th.
Saturday, and then National Championship's on Monday. That's how it's been forever. I don't know why I just kind of had a brain fart there. But, yeah, this is going to be really exciting. And if you're going to pick a season for Kansas basketball to have a documentary about them, this is a perfect one, right? You saw the ebbs and flows of the Darren Peterson injury saga. You saw, the scrappy underdog, pun intended, if you will, story of Melvin Council. You saw, Trey White emerge after bouncing around from 4 different schools. You saw Flory Badunga take a big step up. Bryson Tiller. I mean, you talk about all of these guys, and all of the storylines make for just primetime television, I think. And, we've been covering it obviously all season. I guess you could say this is like 100-part docuseries is just what we're doing right now. But this is going to be really, really exciting. I'm going to be locked in for this, obviously. And, we'll get some behind the scenes things, maybe some things that none of us really know what was happening until kind of after the season. I think it's going to be really cool. This is going to be the first time that anything has really been done like this at Kansas. And again, if you're going to pick a season to do it, this is the one, right? I would love to see sort of the dramatic turn of, hey, after that West Virginia loss, now I doubt there were Paramount Plus cameras in that players only meeting, but you got to imagine they're probably going to talk about it. And then all of a sudden, you see Kansas way down in the dumps, and then you see them on this meteoric rise, go on this stretch of wins and wind up beating the number 1 team in the nation who was undefeated, and they wind up getting into the Big 12 championship race when all of a sudden they started off 1-2 and Darren Peterson was in question and all these different things looming overhead. And, Bill Self, obviously, with his heart condition, he had to be sent to the hospital. And, there's going to be a lot of dramatic things involved with this, I would imagine. It just makes for a perfect kind of documentary. But, again, I'm really excited about this. This is going to be a lot of fun. Really looking forward to it.
Paramount Plus college basketball docuseries where both KU and Michigan are the subject. Again, made for March. It's a 4-part series that follows each team across the entire season. Both teams in the top 10 right now, and hopefully the story will continue being great. I mean, Michigan, we're very confident with all the talent they've had. They're going to remain a top-tier program in college basketball, but Kansas has been on this ascent. Hopefully a lot of great memories, a lot of great storylines, and I'm sure Paramount Plus is thinking the same regarding this docuseries that will be released, part 1, April 4th.
So I guess the production company who's producing this, it is Religion of Sports. It's an award-winning media company founded by Tom Brady, Michael Strahan, and Gotham Chopra. So really, I mean, you got some big names behind it as well. So you got to think the production value is going to be huge. And then, like I said, you're following 2 of the best players in college basketball, in Yaxel Lindeberg and Darren Peterson. It's going to be, I mean, this is must-see TV.
Michigan's own Tom Brady on that front.
Oh, that's right. Oh,
after this,
I didn't even think about that.
After this, Brian Hanni is going to join the show in studio. Rock Chalk Sports rolls on. KansasNation.com and ESPN Kansas City. Sean Kellerman, Dan Courtwright back here in the Kansas Nation studio. Every Thursday on the show, we're joined by the voice of the Jayhawks, Brian Hanni. BH, thanks for coming in. Love the quarter zip. That's one of my favorites.
Man.
Yeah, the little angry hawk, and I love the look of the...
Football latched onto this logo more than any sport. So some days I'm hesitant to wear it if I'm doing basketball stuff. But then again, we're all the same bird.
Right.
We're all the Jayhawk, even though there's different variations of the Jayhawk.
Yeah.
I identify with the 1912 skinny-legged Jayhawk.
There you go.
But we shouldn't be shy to wear this around Allen Fieldhouse because you know what? There's days where we need that fighting hawk.
Oh, my God.
We're going to need it on Saturday up in Ames.
We are, for sure. Yeah, more on that shortly as hopefully Iowa State is, not too angry. I don't know what to expect out of them. They're obviously kind of up and down here these past 3 weeks, but took a beating in the field house and then just lost to TCU, the classic Kansas look-ahead game. But more on that in a bit. Brian, what a night on Monday. One of the all-timers, I think, without question. The video of the fans, I'm sure you've seen it, the panoramic video. It's blown up nationally because of how great Allen Fieldhouse is as a venue, how passionate Kansas fans are. And it's hard really to put into words for anybody who wasn't there how special that night was. And we can talk about the game, and we will, and how these guys have really come together. But it's just unlike anywhere else to watch a sporting event. And we saw that front and center on Monday.
I was trying to put it in perspective where it ranks, not just with Allen Fieldhouse experiences for me. I'm 45. I've been coming to games since I was 5 or 6 with my dad. And honestly, guys, it might be a top 5 anywhere KU basketball experience for me. It's certainly top 2 in Allen Fieldhouse, right there with 2012 versus Mizzou.
Yeah.
And if you're too young to appreciate the intensity of that rivalry, we've talked a lot about it on this show, that's why that game was so elevated. Last chance to ever play him as league rivals. Didn't want to lose to him.
Also a top 5 matchup.
Also a top 5 matchup. Historic comeback. The T-Rob block, all that. There have been other certainly iconic moments there. I was the voice of the Red Raiders when the triple overtime game with Oklahoma and Buddy Hield happened. So I wasn't there for that one personally, but I was there the night Jacques Vaughn hit the big 3 versus Indiana. And to me, the 2 loudest individual moments that I've witnessed were the Jock 3 and the T-Rob block. Separated by 20 years or whatever, but those in a singular moment were the loudest I've heard it. As Coach Self said, Monday night was a sustained energy and electricity for 2.5 hours that was truly special and elite. But when I think about like top 10, top 5 moments of just being around this program in 40 years of being able to remember it, obviously the 2 national championships, in San Antonio and New Orleans are standout, set-apart games, 08 and 22 for me. There have been Final Four runs that I was there for and that kind of thing, but I think what makes this one a contender for the top 5 in any location in my lifetime is simply the fact that it was our first ever win over a number 1 team in the Fieldhouse, and we did it without the number 1 pick in the draft. And you find out about his absence with less than an hour to go before tip-off, and it was such a all hands on deck, everybody grab that rope and pick up a little more slack, tug a little harder type moment that if you think about the pillars and the staples of Bill Self brilliance, toughness and grit are at the top of the list. And that night required more toughness and just suck it up. And I don't care who's here or not here. This is what we got. Let's go get it done type mentality. And that's why I think you saw the emotion of Bill Self afterwards. And his post-game celebration with the 2 fists clenched and the arms raised. We were comparing it to, yes, the 2012 Missouri game. There was the early Self-era win over Oklahoma State when Wayne Simeon was so huge and they were both looking to the heavens. But then the hugs were similar to the Devontae Graham 2017 down 14 with 2:42 to go versus West Virginia game. The joy on both faces, the hugs, the embraces, all that. In Monday's case, it was hugging Melvin and Flory. But what he did to the south side, the west, and the east side, working his way around, I guess it would have gone west, south, east with the double fist clenched arm raise going like this to each section all the way around. I'd never seen that before. I'd never seen that continuation of his emotion and his jubilation before. And I think it's because of the last couple of years haven't gone our way, particularly last year. A couple of those teams haven't felt the same kind of vibes and chemistry that this group has. He loves this team, and they love each other. And then when you couple in the fact that you lost your superstar last minute and you had to just do it with, as Mitch Holthus would say, a bucket of guts, and grit and all that, I think those are things that Bill Self gets juiced about more than any other. Not playing without a superstar, but about just leaving your toughness all out there on the floor and seeing if it's enough to get it done. And so when you add all that together, it is top 5 for me of the games I've witnessed in person. That's putting it ahead of some Elite 8 wins and Final Four wins and all that. It's not putting it ahead of the 08 and 22 title games. Those both had unique comebacks. But it's right there with Missouri, and I'd have to really think long and hard about what rounds out the top 5 for me. Maybe calling my first Elite 8 in Omaha to win in overtime versus Duke 2018 to get to that Final Four. We don't have to talk about what happened after that game in San Antonio. I think this is an all-timer. And hopefully that gives you some perspective, not just on Fieldhouse games, but anywhere games in the last 40 years.
Absolutely. It's always a special night in the Fieldhouse, but something a little bit different. And I think that the Peterson news coming out when it did, KU basketball fans, I talk about this a lot, are so educated because they watch every game. It's not like other programs where people just check out. KU basketball fans are in this thing, and I'm not talking from November to April. Throughout the season, I mean, they are locked in. The ownership that I feel like the fans took on the building and the program after it was announced Peterson wouldn't play, I think was next level. Yeah. Because everybody was saying, all right, well, there's no way Kansas is going to win this game. And honestly, I'm sure that there were some people out there thinking it's not embarrassing if you lose this game, because it's not. It's the number one team in the country, but that doesn't make it okay at Kansas to lose this game. This is our building. No matter who's out there donning the crimson and blue, we expect to win. And all that being said, you got to get it done. The guys get down by 11, and then something happens. They're able to flip the switch against a team that is so talented, gritty in their own right, top 6 KenPom offensively and defensively. But Kansas is the team making the plays, and it just was an electric atmosphere and a win that now has vaulted Kansas into Big 12 conversation, and certainly now it's looking like up onto that 2 line for the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, isn't that awesome? And when we sat here 2 weeks ago on this show, we talked about this 5-game and 15-day gauntlet where 4 of the 5 games would be against top 15 teams. I told you my hope for us was 4-1, and I thought it was realistic. And
so you want us to lose on Saturday? Is that what you're saying?
That's not my hope anymore. But I think some people at that time would have thought, hey, 3-2 is probably more doable than 4-1. And here we sit at 4-0. And how far have we come as a team in different realms in that time? And I don't want to go too far off on that tangent, but you had the Darren Peterson final 90 seconds in Lubbock. You had then a team winning without Darren Peterson on Monday night where Jamari McDowell steps up and plays the game of his life. And all the while in this same stretch, we've seen Bryson Tiller step forward and look like a pro prospect that for the first half of the year maybe wasn't quite playing to his size, or the game was coming a little too fast, but now he's an enforcer, and we've seen Flory become the front runner for National Defensive Player of the Year in this stretch. So this team, to the last part of your question about now they've vaulted into the league race and now they've vaulted to a 2 seed. I mean, before this stretch, we were on the 4-5 line, and you're talking about, damn, that round of 32 matchup, should you get there, is going to be really tough, and then you're playing a 1 seed in the Sweet 16. But we knew there was opportunity to climb out of that. To see how high they've climbed in just 13 days, the 15th day will be on Saturday, we're talking on Thursday, it's remarkable. So the second half of your question, that's how I feel about that. The first half of your question about the ownership the fans took after Darren was ruled out, and I think you said there were people online saying, man, we don't have a chance now and all that. It's interesting. I'll tell you my stream of consciousness when that happened. We found out maybe 5 minutes before the rest of everybody else did. We weren't in the know all day. I was at shoot around. I saw him out there. I assumed he'd be good to go because, as Bill said, the adrenaline kicks in. You probably find a way, right? But he just didn't get better. And ultimately, you know, with the symptoms he was having, he and the doc staff decided, you know what, we can't put him out there tonight. So whatever. I hear that, and I turn to Greg and I turn to Steve Kincaid, our engineer, and I say, man, that sucks. It's just disheartening. It's kind of a bummer. And I sat in that wallowing feeling of bummed out for about 2 minutes, and I thought, kind of looking around, and I'm like, wait a minute. This is Allen frickin' Fieldhouse. And you know what? We still have Flory, and we still have Melvin, and we still have Trey White, who had a down game, but still, he's a stud. Mm-hmm. We still have all these other guys, but most importantly, we've got Bill Self, and we've got this crowd, and amongst this crowd in this house, he wins 95% of our games. I know that's Goliath, but we're far from just David with a sling and a stone. We still got some dudes. By the way, David with a sling and a stone was still pretty mighty. But my point is, we've got the greatest home court advantage in the world right here. And we've got guys that have, for 10 games prior to Monday, played without DP. It's not like this is being sprung on them for the first time and they're a fish out of water, and how do we figure this out? And so I thought to myself, I like us. I like our chances.
Yeah.
This is going to be fun. Let's go. And sure enough, even though we got out to a little bit of a slow start, what was it, 6-0 out the gates, we quickly showed over the first 10 or 12 minutes of that game, this was going to be a contest. And even when we went down 11, I didn't feel like the dam had broke and we were done. Had we gone down 20, I would have felt that way because we don't have the firepower from a three-point status without Darren Peterson to get back in it. But at 11 in that building, anything is possible. And as soon as they started to go on their little run and they flipped it with the 23-9, big heater there toward Arizona, and suddenly Tommy Lloyd's fired up. He's calling timeouts. He's blowing a gasket over there like, man, what's going on? You feel like, hey, this is the Allen Fieldhouse experience we all know and love. This is the patented Roy Williams or Bill Self run where you get a team on its heels and you go for the throat. You start to get a couple of calls. Things are going your way. Suddenly, we weren't thinking about DP at all.
Yeah.
As the play-by-play guy, you remind your audience of that once every 8 minutes or so of clock time in case they're just tuning in and finding it out. But it was a distant memory at that point. I'm thinking, this team, sans him, with Melvin and Flo and all these guys, we can do this. Sure enough, they did. What a memory that proved to be made.
100%. An instant classic at Allen Fieldhouse on Saturday, and still work to be done. Like Sean said, we're in the conversations now for the Big 12 championship, but you still need to go out and win. You still need to have some things kind of roll your way. Obviously, big one coming up on Saturday, I said Saturday for Arizona. That was Monday. But Saturday coming up, you got Iowa State. You're in Hilton. But at the same time, you look at all of the improbable wins that Kansas has, going down to Lubbock and Darren Peterson hitting those two massive threes. You got undefeated Arizona coming in on Big Monday, and Kansas takes them down late after Flory Badunga kind of emerges. Jamar McDowell was incredible in this game. Kansas has battled through the adversity, and Iowa State, they're shooting 25% from three in their last two games. Kansas, last time they faced off, kind of kicked their teeth in a little bit here at Allen Fieldhouse. You think they remember that a little bit, obviously? They're a really good program still. They're ranked higher than Kansas right now. You got to go up to Hilton. It's going to be a ruckus atmosphere. Give us a preview of what's to come for that game.
Well, what I'm anticipating is for them to go from 25% from three their last two games to about 55%.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that, but I think we're all counting on them to heat up in their house with a stretch where they not only have Kansas, but then Houston right after. So their backs are firmly up against the wall for the league race. They're still a Final Four contender regardless because they're just that good. Whether it's Joshua Jefferson or Taman Lipsey or the talented influx of freshman talent we could cover as well. Momcilovic is the head of the snake this season at almost 19 a game and 52% from downtown. But they've got so many different options that could step up and beat you. So to me, this is as massive of a test as we'll have until we go to Tucson and one of your top 3 or 4 challenges all year. And you expect, based on the desperation of their situation, that you're going to absolutely get their best shot. That doesn't guarantee shots are going to fall. And we're still the number 1 3-point defending team in the conference. And so I hope that there's some weight to that. But we've seen enough of those games play out up there, 3 straight defeats up there, to know that that crowd will be turned to an all-time, excitement level. We'll see their team as dialed in as they will have been all season. And this is what saves ISU's chances of staying in the league race. You lose this one, they're probably out. And we talked about this off the air. It's hard to imagine a 4-loss team winning the Big 12 this year. But having said that, 5 of Arizona's last 7 games are against top 20 teams. They could pile up a couple of losses on top of what they already have. Yeah. I don't see them piling up more than 2 more. I just don't. They're so good. And the Kansas game is in Tucson. Not to say we can't win it. We beat them without DP, and you'd expect them to play in that one. But my point is, Kansas is teetering on that cut line of where we expect the eventual Big 12 champion to sit, which is probably going to be 15-3. Would you agree with that? Would you guess that? We can afford one more. I don't want to give it up on Saturday and then have to run the table with Houston and Arizona still in front of us.
We've gotten lucky to – not lucky. The guys have gone out and done it. But when you look at the schedule, Kansas has won 4 games against top 15 teams in the last 8 games. And now you're kind of getting KU's March schedule is fortuitous. You get 2 games in March, so that's good. But you still have 3 top 5 teams you have to face. And I think that the ability for Kansas to win the games they have has kind of swung the pressure now from a scheduling standpoint to Arizona, maybe even Iowa State. But to your point about 15-3, I don't see Houston losing 2 more games.
Right.
Because, or certainly not 3 more games, because we talked about this yesterday. They've got 7 games left, as pretty much everybody does. 4 of them, they're absolutely going to win because Houston just bludgeons people, it seems like. They've got at Iowa State and at Kansas, and then the Arizona games at home, you'd expect Houston to win that. I mean, they're not losing more than 2 of those, right?
I think they lose 2 more.
Okay.
But yes.
So that's 3 losses for them.
Right. So that's where I say, 15-3. And then in the case of Arizona, like we said, 5 of their last 7 are against ranked teams. They probably win 3 of those 5, and they bludgeon the other 2.
Yeah.
So to me, 15-3 is the number. We can afford 1 more. I said earlier, I hope it's not Saturday because then you're truly make or break the rest of the way. In Iowa State's case, they can't afford any more.
Right.
They're at that number now because of their loss to Cincinnati and their loss to TCU, and obviously they lost here in Lawrence. And so their next 2 games are the biggest 2 games of their season, and it all starts Saturday at noon. So that's why I expect, to Daniel's question, the most dialed in, locked in, amped up, whatever effort you could possibly have out of ISU. We have to find a way to bring that same level of desperation, even though we're 1 game ahead of them in the standings, because it's not that you give margin for error back, because again, not many expected Kansas to go 5-0 in this stretch, or even 4-1 in this stretch. But if you want to stay in control of your own destiny, you have to win Saturday. If you lose Saturday, then it doesn't matter, if you beat Arizona and Houston yourself, you still have to get some help because you're at 3 losses. And beating Houston would only put them at a 2nd loss, and beating Arizona would only put them at a 2nd loss as far as Kansas is concerned. Will they get help? They probably will. I just don't want Kansas to have to be in a position to hope for that help. Because as several coaches have said over the years, hope is not a strategy.
Right.
Yeah.
And so let's go out and control our own destiny. So it's not must win like you're out of the race, but I think it is must win to control your own destiny. And that to me is something that Kansas for years always had. And I'd love to get back into that, because if you do win, well then how much fun are the next 72 hours going to be after that, where you get to watch Houston and Iowa State duke it out.
Popcorn will be popping.
And sweat it. And then you get to watch Arizona and some of their matchups unfold, sweating it out. I can't wait for that. So Saturday, from a Kansas perspective, is a huge swing game. From an Iowa State perspective, it's make or break within the league race. And if they get it broken, either of their next 2 games they lose at home, then they're not thinking about the Big 12 anymore. I think they're thinking about how do we play our best ball heading into Kansas City, because this is a Final Four team, win, lose, or draw in the league race. And we're probably putting too many eggs in the league race conversation right now, but we've got 64 conference championships, and we care about these things around here.
Yeah, well,
so
exactly.
we will talk about it.
Exactly. And how nice is it to talk about it? It's funny because you look at the schedule and that's the focus now. I mean, when you were boarding the flight coming home from West Virginia, would you have taken 9-2? I think so. You would have won 8 straight games. But at that point, we were like, all right, how are we going to get right? Coach Self saying we suck right now. And well, we don't suck anymore. We've figured it out, and the guys have gritted it out. They're playing for the name on the front of their jersey, and it's been a blast. But, yeah, it's great having the conversations about league race and reminding ourselves that other teams have to play hard games too, because that's how it used to be for so long. The last couple of years, we've kind of had to veer away from that. But yeah, the Oklahoma State game next week also is not going to be particularly fun. Kansas will go in, I'd imagine, as a small favorite in that one, and they're a team that's fighting for NCAA tournament. But it's been a blast kind of getting back to it. And I think back 2 things to what Soren Petros said on Sports Radio 810 WHB before the BYU game. He had said, at what point does Kansas, get back to being Kansas? And this kind of struck me. And I don't think he was saying from a program standpoint, but maybe from a mindset standpoint, because BYU was coming to town, top 15. At what point do you say, hey, we're Kansas, you're BYU? And that kind of stuck with me. It's like, okay, that's right. And then we were talking about this 5-game stretch or even longer stretch for Kansas basketball. And I remember talking to many members of the media. I asked DL about this. I'm like, okay, for the next 5 games, right, before this 4-game win streak started, it's like, would you take 3-2? And you want to be realistic about it to an extent and say, oh, yeah, these are going to be really hard games. But on the other hand, you want to be prideful about it. Yeah. And you want to say, no, we're Kansas. We're going to win all these, and I'll be darned. They're going to have a chance on Saturday to do that. But Hilton will be rocking. I'm sure you guys are excited. We'll go on air at 10:30 for the noon tip. And, nothing would surprise me now from a success standpoint of this team. Should be fun to watch.
Should be fun. It's always a great atmosphere. I can't tell you how many games I've gone up there, and it's been 12 degrees outside, and there's students camping outside, which is different than what the students have to do here in Lawrence. I don't know how many frostbit fingers have been sacrificed to give that extra sixth-man energy up there. They love their hoops, and it's a great place. There's no place like our place, but to me, there's a next level of tiered, tough venues, and it's Iowa State, BYU, and Texas Tech in the modern day Big 12 basketball. And so this is going to be a tough one, as we said. Can't wait for it. And, of course, we'll have all the action on the Jayhawk Sports Network, including Sports Radio 810 WHB. So thank you.
Absolutely. Well, appreciate you coming in, Brian. I know you got a busy few days ahead, but quick shout-out to Nate Miller as well.
That's right.
Retirement Group.
Nate Miller Retirement Group. Do what Nate's done for so many. Sit down with him today. He can help you out with your long-term investment portfolio as you save up for retirement. Perhaps you've just sold a business and you're looking to reallocate those funds. He can help you with all the right moves to make in that regard. So check him out today, MillerRetirementGroup.com. All right, fellas, enjoy the weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, travel safe. That's
Thanks.
Voice of the Jayhawks, Brian Hanni, joining us here live in the Kansas Nation studio. More coming up after this as we talk KU baseball, KansasNation.com, ESPN, Kansas City. Welcome back to Rock Chalk Sports. Dan, tell us about KU baseball.
I would love to tell you about KU baseball. KU baseball. I've
got a snack.
You got a mouthful of Triscuits right now. Sean has an emergency box of Triscuits he's been working on for, 2 months, 3 months probably?
Yeah, there was 10 seconds to come back, and I was panicking there a little bit.
That's fair.
But
that's a perfect time to break out the emergency Triscuits.
You know it, man. That's why we keep it. That's why we keep it here. We are going to talk KU baseball here as they get their season underway tomorrow against UT Rio Grande Valley. Excited for Coach Fitz. I've said this before, but one of the more personable guys in the business. He and Coach Self are the best in the business, and Coach Fitz continuing to bring in talent. KU baseball has had a lot of success in the postseason, and it's been really fun to track. They've played deep into the spring, which has been nice as well. As once basketball season ends, sometimes sports can fade a little bit around here, but KU baseball, they've been a blast. And they've got such great personality, not just as a team, but individuals, and a lot of those guys are returning. We'll talk about that. First, I want to tell you about Game Day Men's Health Lawrence. Mitch Bales and his team over there can get you back in the game. If you're struggling with weight loss, perhaps low energy, if you think you're low on testosterone, they can help you. They've got peptides, they've got testosterone replacement therapy, all sorts of options for you. Your first visit is completely complimentary to Game Day Men's Health Lawrence. Check them out. 3-step process. It starts with a blood draw, and then you can look over your results with their staff members there. Very friendly, very comfortable atmosphere. Our partners at Kansas Nation, Game Day Men's Health Lawrence. Tell them the guys over here at Kansas Nation sent you, and make sure that you are feeling your best, particularly as the spring and summer months are going to be upon us very shortly. KU baseball, Dan, getting underway, and they're going to do it against a good program in Rio Grande Valley.
Yeah, I mean, really excited, obviously, for KU baseball to be back. KU, obviously, they went to the NCAA tournament last year. They wound up losing down in Arkansas to North Dakota State. Really unfortunate, but they're bringing back a lot of really impressive players as well, losing a lot of guys. They lost 9 guys to, either pro baseball or whatever it may be, most notably Brady Council, Alex Breckheimer, and Derek Serta. All of those guys were selected in the MLB draft. Breckheimer signed with the Cardinals. Brady Council, I'm not sure where he's at right now, but I believe Derek Serta is in the White Sox organization as we speak. So obviously good for them, but Kansas bringing back a lot of guys as well. Obviously bringing back Dario Losoria, Brady Ballinger, Dom Vegley, who is one of our star pitchers, going to be presumably the Friday guy for this Kansas squad. They're playing Rio Grande Valley tomorrow. UTRGV. They're good. I was looking into this kind of on the game notes. They were 36-18 last year, barely missed the NCAA tournament, and they're bringing back 10 position players from last season. 8 of them started, and they were in the top 20 in the nation in fielding percentage, double plays, and double plays per game. Also, really good pitching staff as well. So defensively, Rio Grande Valley is, one of the top teams, especially with returning players who are coming into this. So it's not going to be a cakewalk for Kansas. I know a lot of people haven't really heard of UTRGV, the Vaqueros, as we just learned from Henry Greenstein yesterday. but they're still a really good program. So it's going to be important for Kansas to get off to a hot start and, obviously win some of these games. Kansas baseball, as we know, college baseball in general, usually start, south of the Mason-Dixon line, if you will, just because they're starting in February and it's cold everywhere else. And, so Kansas going down to Texas, they're going to have a long stretch down in Texas. Softball, they're down in Florida right now, just to kind of kick off the season, and then we'll see them eventually in March here in Lawrence. But really, really excited for this to start. Don Begley, like I said, he's going to be the Friday guy for KU. Mathis Nayral is going to be the Saturday guy, presumably against UTRGV. And then Sunday, you got Madden Seidel, shout out, Emporia native Madden Seidel, going to be the Sunday closer. So, again, really excited. Kansas has a lot of returning guys who, a lot of names that you should be able to recognize. Brady Ballinger is moving out to the outfield. Played first base last year, but you needed to fill a spot in the outfield. Brady's able to do it. You got Dariel Osoria, who was the DH from last year. Now he's going to be in the infield. Has been working his butt off in the offseason trying to get to where he needs to be in that fielding position. And Dan Fitzgerald said that he's done an excellent job of working and becoming a high caliber fielder as well as a batter. So getting really, really excited about those guys.
Yeah, interesting, I think, from a pitching standpoint, what Kansas is going to do. You feel good about Begley as the starting pitcher for Friday. Cannon Carr, someone who really came on. I wouldn't be shocked if he eventually is in the starting rotation, but Coach Fitz mentioning at his press conference last week that, bullpen's important too. You need those pieces in the bullpen. We saw Manning West over and over again get called into action, 30-plus appearances for Manning West. But from a bullpen standpoint, Kansas relied heavily early stages last season on Alex Breckheimer and Eric Land. Breckheimer then would eventually win the closing job, which, as Coach Fitz talked about, isn't always getting the last 3 outs. Sometimes it's getting the most important 3 outs in the 7th, 8th inning, and they would rely on the big arm of Alex Breckheimer. So very curious to see how that's going to look. And then, you're losing a lot of guys, like you mentioned. Last season, Kansas was comfortable with the middle of the order, particularly with Jackson Hauge, Brady Council. Derek Serta spent a lot of the season leading off for Kansas, and he was really one of the few guys who provided the speed element as well. But there was times where he was in the middle of the order as well. And you're losing guys that were pretty dependable at the bottom of the order, both offensively and defensively, and Sawyer Smith, the shortstop, and Ian Francis, the catcher. There was some depth, and you pretty much knew what you were going to get from those guys on any given night. Can Kansas continue defensively being as stout as they were? So pitching and defense, that's, I think, where it starts, because you feel at least confident that you're going to get somewhat consistent production knowing that you have Ballinger and Osoria back on the offensive side.
Yeah, I think on the defensive side of the ball, you're going to have a lot of guys be able to step up. You're losing a lot of production out there, and you have a lot of moving pieces. Like I said, Brady's moving in the outfield. Dariel Osoria, who has not played in the infield in his entire collegiate career, now going to be playing in the infield for the Jayhawks. You had Brady Council last year, who was a Gold Glove guy. I think the story of last year was the offense and how prolific of an offense Kansas had. Every game they were putting up run after run after run, but the defense was also really good. That's what made Kansas so elite, is that they were good on both sides of the ball. You're losing a lot of production. You still have the production on the offensive side. Like you said, you're losing some bats in Sawyer Smith and Ian Francis, Jackson Hauge as well, who, hit 1 million home runs last year. But you're still bringing back Brady, who, again, is a very, very good hitter. You're bringing back Dariel, who's awesome. But, defense, I think, is maybe where the biggest question marks is. Not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying there are question marks because we haven't seen them out there yet.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll have to wait and see. And there's, in this stage of the season, for pretty much any college baseball team, going to be spots that still need to be won. That's how it works. It's not as much like a football team or even a basketball team where you feel like you have an idea. Maybe there's 1 or 2 positions that you have questioned.
Yeah.
In this scenario, a lot of talent on this team. Ballinger and Osoria are going to be out there. There's a couple other incoming players like Jordan Bach that we know are going to be out there. But you lost a lot with Smith, Francis, Hauge, Council. That's a lot of starters, a lot of production, so there's spots to be won. Excited to see Kansas baseball throughout this season. Again, it starts with a weekend series against UT Rio Grande Valley. As usual, KU baseball and softball starting away from this cold weather state of ours, going down to Texas, Florida, and some other warm weather states to get their seasons kicked off. We'll keep you up to date on everything going with KU baseball, always on Rock Chalk Sports and at KansasNation.com. After this, we're going to be joined via Zoom by Derek Johnson to talk all things KU. KansasNation.com, ESPN, Kansas City. It's here, KansasNation.com, ESPN, Kansas City. We are on Zoom now, if you could not tell. We're joined by a very special guest. Derek Johnson from Locked On Jayhawks joins us. Derek, appreciate you making the time coming on. A lot to get to. We haven't talked to you this season, and want some football thoughts as well as the offseason is going. But, man, just give us kind of your take, ups and downs of this Kansas basketball season, which recently has been a lot of ups. There have been storylines, there have been sagas, if you will. But right now, we're kind of in a tree with what happened on Monday night and the ascent of this current KU basketball team.
Yeah, it's been so fun to watch. And I guess the turning point of that players only meeting, it has been such a whirlwind for this season, because I think we all started the year and everybody had high hopes about what the roster could be, what Darren Peterson could be. And you get to the Duke game and Peterson doesn't play, but everybody felt pretty good about the team after the Duke loss in the Champions Classic. And then you kind of go on with the non-con, you show some stuff in the players era, and then you have that early dip in conference play. And it's like, okay, what is this team? You don't entirely know. So now winning 8 straight games, beating some really good opponents, you're sitting there with the resume looking really good. You've got a ton of quad 1A, quad 1 and 2 wins. Like it is crazy how quickly things change. And honestly, it reminds me a little bit of that 2015, 2016 Kansas team that I think they lost 3 straight road games at one point in like January, and they lost like 3 of 5 or something like that overall. And they ended up winning, I don't know, 16 straight games or something like that, and getting the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament before, falling to Villanova in the Elite Eight. But I think some similarities, not necessarily in the team constructions, but just in terms of kind of hitting their stride at the right moment. But obviously it's not going to be any easier with the upcoming schedule.
Yeah, 100%. And, obviously that was maybe a top 5 game in Allen Fieldhouse history, at least one of the best games that I've ever personally been to. And you talk about the storylines coming in. Darren Peterson, you find out like 10 minutes beforehand he's not going to be playing. You got, Goliath coming in. They're undefeated, number 1 team in the nation, dominant front court. And we certainly saw that at the beginning, right? I mean, Krivas was just giving Flory the business, at least at the beginning. And then Flory kind of battled his way back. It feels like after a couple of big time dunks, you saw Flory start to be the Flory Bidunga we all needed him to be. Talk about kind of his uptick throughout this season, because you feel like early in the season, at least in the non-con, when you were kind of playing those bye games, Flory wasn't quite there, or at least what we thought that he could be in terms of the dominant big man that Flory Bidunga could be. All of a sudden, now he's in conversations for defensive player of the year in the nation. He's, All-American talks. He has just been incredible on the defensive side of the glass. Just talk about the transformation you've seen out of Flory this year.
Yeah, I think in the non-con, there were some moments where it was really, really good. It looked super impressive. And I think there were some down moments in the non-con. I think it was a little inconsistent. Like you think of the NC State game, and I thought he got outplayed in that one by Van Allen Lubin, who's not, the best center in the world. I thought Andre Vasar for North Carolina got the better of him. But then he played really well against Duke. And then he had some of those games where you'd have 20 points on super high efficiency. And then you think of the first 2 games of the Players Era tournament where he was KU's best player and helps them win the games. But then in the Tennessee game, really struggled against a team with a lot of physicality and size. So there were some inconsistencies. But when you think back to it, again, this is a guy who, didn't start playing basketball till he was in high school, at least, competitively. And there were always going to be raw moments for Flory. I think what you're seeing now is as he's getting more live game reps, he's starting to become more consistent. And we've always known the ceiling's been there for Flory, but now that the consistency is there too, I mean, these last 4 games, he's looked like a legit pro. Like I kind of a coin flip, like, is he going to go pro? Is he not? And still that'll be up to him. And obviously, there'll be probably a pretty hefty NIL tag to try to get him back. But like, man, it is going to be tough to keep him out of the pros the way he's playing right now and the way that he is defending out there. In these last 4 games, he has been unbelievable. And just think about the different guys he's had to defend, from defending AJ DeBonta, more of a wing type player, to JT Toppin, the defending Big 12 player of the year. And then the second half he had against Arizona, where he puts up 16-8 in the second half to lead Kansas to a win without Darren Peterson. I have been so incredibly impressed. He seems to be getting better each and every game, each and every week. The consistency is there now. And yeah, it does feel like one of those, prime years for KU at the center position, where they do have a guy that, for my money, should be an All-American when things are said and done, as long as he keeps playing like this.
Yeah, and how about the fact that even going into the Arizona game, as good as Flory has been defensively, there was still that, okay, but he's going to face real size in this one. And Arizona dominates the paint against pretty much anybody, and Flory ends up being the best big. I mean, what a great thing that's got to do for his confidence moving forward. There have been so many storylines this season, and you can't say the Darren Peterson saga storyline, because that's its own monster, it seems like. What has been your favorite, biggest, whatever you want to call it, storyline? Because you've got Melvin Council coming in, kind of bringing the KU culture back. You've got Trey White, all of a sudden, he's Steph Curry from beyond the arc. You've got Bryson Tiller. He's found a way to really put his name on the map for college and even NBA scouts as well. He's been a revelation for KU. A lot of good things have happened, particularly after the last 2 years didn't go as planned.
Yeah, it's been really cool to see because, like, again, going back to Flory, like the development, you just go back to that Tennessee game where he's struggling against a team with a bunch of size and physicality. And then you look at Arizona, that's a team with a bunch of size and physicality. And that shows the progress that he's made. You mentioned Bryson Tiller, like the progress that he has made from the beginning of the season to where he's looked. I mean, the past 5 games, he's averaging like 13 points, 7 rebounds per game. He's looking like a future KU star. You look at the improvement of some of these players, like Marco Jackson in conference play, his numbers have gone up. Obviously, he had the huge Tennessee game, but his overall numbers have gone up pretty substantially so far in Big 12 only games. I think you kind of look at it and it just feels like there has been a level of improvement. And it feels like the past couple of years for KU, that's what was missing. Like we saw KU the past couple of years when it wasn't up to the standards, still score some huge non-con wins, like beating UConn at home a couple of years ago, beating Duke in the Vegas game with Cooper Flagg. Like you had those, but then it just felt like in the conference portion of the season, you kind of stalled out. Like you weren't getting better, other teams were, and you just kind of were who you were. And this year it's not the case. Like I just profiled some of those players as a team. It's true too. Like they're getting better in a lot of areas, and that is what we're used to seeing from Bill Self and KU basketball. It's been super encouraging to watch. And yeah, I mean, Tiller is probably been my favorite story in that regard, just because like that is the classic KU story of a guy who, in years past, maybe it was T-Rob or Cole Aldridge coming off the bench. Tiller's still starting, but of where you're seeing the guy that's supposed to be the next guy and you're getting flashes of it. Like we've had this for so long, from whether it was, okay, Devontae Graham is Frank Mason's understudy, and now he's going to break out. Sharon Collins is Mario Chalmers' understudy, but you see the flashes, and once he becomes the guy, he's going to break out. I mentioned Aldridge. I mentioned, some of these other big men, but like, we've seen that for so many years, and to feel like you have that now where he's contributing in a big way, but it also feels like KU's big next star potentially for next season is really cool and kind of a vintage Bill Self play.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Bryson Tiller, and the word that he keeps on bringing up is, being more aggressive, right? And you saw that early where you're like, man, if he could just be more aggressive, like getting to the rim, drawing those fouls, if he can, I mean, at least aggressiveness in terms of, putting up shots. And we're seeing him get more and more aggressive as time goes on. And you're seeing flashes where you're thinking, man, this guy's ceiling is, NBA caliber. Like he's got the bag to be able to do that. Derek, I wanted to talk to you kind of about the path forward for Kansas. I think if you look at after the West Virginia game, Kansas is 1-2 in conference play. All of a sudden they're 9-2. If you would have, probably asked you after that West Virginia game, hey, would you be okay with 9-2? I would imagine you would say absolutely, right? But you got a tough one coming up against Iowa State. Iowa State, their last 2 games, they're only shooting 25% from the 3-point line. But last time KU played them, we kind of kicked their teeth in a little bit, and they're going to be mad. They're coming off a loss against TCU.
they're going to have a little bit of a fire in them because they need to win this game in order to stay in Big 12 championship conversations. Give us a preview of that game and also what's to come, because Kansas, we still got Houston coming into town, and we still got to go to Arizona. Arizona is going to be mad about this last game as well. So talk to us about the path forward, but more specifically about Iowa State.
Yeah, so I always think back to the game a couple of years ago with Iowa State, where it's like they're going to shoot better at home, even with this slump. I can't remember the name of the kid, but they had like a wing who's like a 6'7" wing, who I think had 3 made threes coming into the game on the season, and I want to say he made like 4 or 5 against Kansas.
Man, was that the Trey King?
Yes, there we go.
Yeah,
Yep.
The Trey King.
Yep.
King.
Yeah.
Who had basically done nothing all year. Yeah.
Yep. So I think about that. So like, it would not shock me if Iowa State gets hot from 3 to kind of bounce back in this game, at least better than they've been in some of the recent games. What I'll find really interesting is, yeah, you're right. Like, Iowa State's going to probably be a little ticked off coming into the game. They're going to be highly motivated. Is Darren Peterson going to be ticked off and highly motivated? Right. I mean, like, it feels like a little bit more, I don't know, to the story stuff that has kind of come out. Like, it feels like there's more national headlines on what's happening with Darren Peterson this time around than in the past, where it's maybe been more localized. And I can't help but wonder if Darren Peterson ain't going to go into Ames and try to pull an Elijah Johnson, and try to put up near 40 points and lead KU to win, and kind of remind people like, hey, I'm still a really, really darn good basketball player. So I think that'll be a good thing there. But yeah, I mean, Iowa State is a team that I don't think we got to see the full brunt of in Allen Fieldhouse, or maybe it was just KU was playing so well that, you didn't have to worry about it in that specific game. But this is a really good defensive team. I love the backcourt battle, because you have Taman Lipsey and Killian Torre for Iowa State, who is as good of a defensive guard duo in the country, which obviously makes it really interesting with Melvin Council and Darren Peterson. And then you're looking at Joshua Jefferson, who has been a really big matchup nightmare for a lot of teams. 17 points per game. He over 5 assists per game. He's a good rebounder. But KU actually limited him really well in Allen Fieldhouse. I think he was 4 of 14 in that first game. And I thinking back to it, like, Jefferson's not a guy who's great at the rim. He's more of like a floater game, mid-range, pass out of the mid-range. We'll find Milan Momcilovic, who's having one of the most efficient 3-point shooting teams like in Big 12 history. And I can't help but wonder if KU is actually a good matchup in the sense of, like, from KU's perspective for Jefferson. Like, a lot of other teams, you might have a wing four-man and Jefferson can just back him down in the post, or you have more of a true big who's not going to be comfortable guarding Jefferson. Because KU was able to throw Tiller and Flory on Jefferson, I do think that is really helpful in this specific matchup. So I do think that, like, in a weird way, KU actually matches up okay with Iowa State, but the fact that they're still a really good team playing in Ames, it's going to be a difficult game, right? And then, yeah, I mean, at Arizona, the Houston game at home, I even think there's a little bit of trip up possibility in the Stillwater game at Oklahoma State, right? I mean, I know KU's won the last couple of years they've played there, but that's traditionally been a difficult place for Bill Self teams to play, and Oklahoma State's probably got their best team, and gosh, I don't know, at least a handful of years. They've had some down years there, and they're at least like kind of flirting with the bubble here. So I think that'll be a difficult one. I don't know, 4-3, like 5-2 at this point down the rest of the season. I think I would take that. I know 5-2 at that point, you're not winning the Big 12, most likely, with where Arizona and Houston are at. But if you can go even 4-3, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world here down the stretch.
Yeah, and it's so interesting too. And I want to go back to Darren Peterson. We had Hanni on the show a little bit ago and didn't ask him about DP. So I want to go back because you had a great point on that. But the Arizona game, Kansas was down 11, didn't have Peterson, and then KU cuts it to 62-61 after Flory's poster and one. And I'm thinking, this is the rare occurrence where Kansas and Allen Fieldhouse is not the team with the pressure on them, and it's a rare day that the undefeated number 1 team comes in, but still, kind of down the line at Iowa State, at Arizona, Kansas is going to be an underdog, and they seem to embrace whatever role they're in. So I'm excited on that front. But back to what you said about Peterson, I completely agree. Winning helps everything. It's still a story, and I knew it was going to be a story whether Kansas had won or lost that game. But if Kansas had lost that game, the story would be blown up even more, particularly locally, about how Kansas lost and would they have won with Peterson, and Peterson's this, Peterson's that. But now the win has softened the blow a little bit. All of a sudden, okay, we assume he'll be back on Saturday and all that, and hopefully no issues moving forward. But it has been a national burst right now where DeBonce is still going out and getting 30 plus a night, even though, Peterson stole his lunch money at the head-to-head matchup. Still, it's a thing, and everybody's seeing that, and it's becoming national. You have to wonder, despite all these voices in DP's ears and the injuries he's dealt with and all that, if there's a little extra chip on his shoulder, particularly these past few days.
I would certainly think so. I mean, because like I said, it's one thing when it's okay, like, oh, what's going on here? What's not playing? Like, it is a lot of national media personalities that are kind of, I mean, like, I don't think I've ever, obviously the Bill Self press conference that just happened, like mentioning, going on X, but I've never seen Bill Self mention like a social media or like going on social media and, seeing the haters, so to speak. Right. So it's clear at this point, like, there's no, if Bill Self is seeing it, Darren Peterson's seeing it, right? Like the 18-year-old's going to see it better than the 60-year-old is. So I think that it'd be impossible not to have some level of added motivation. And then you do have the standpoint that, yeah, like you're probably going to be matched up with Killian Torre, who is, I don't know. I've seen like one draft expert call him the best perimeter defensive player in the draft. So like, it is a good opportunity to kind of showcase your skills, do it on the road. And I don't know, maybe it's even added motivation too that Kansas beat Arizona without him, because maybe not motivation is the right word, but from a standpoint of like, there's almost this feeling of like, okay, like I'm carrying the team. I'm supposed to be the number one pick. And now you can sit back and go, oh, we've actually got like a really good team here. I just need to be a part of this. I don't necessarily need to be the be all end all of this. And maybe that can, I don't know, take a little bit of pressure off you while also kind of motivating you to be a part of something special.
Yeah, 100%. Derek Johnson from the Locked On Jayhawk podcast joins the show via Zoom. Derek, appreciate you. I got to ask a football question. We're going to flip it over to football because, Lance Leipold, I've been pretty consistent about this. I think the best thing that he does as a coach, at least from the time he got here till the time now, is A, player retention, and B, getting guys out of the portal. I think that he is very good at doing that, and feels as though Kansas lost a lot of guys, but he brought a lot of talent in. You talk about Nick McMillan from Buffalo, who was a top receiver in the nation last year. You talk about, some of the running backs like Dylan Edwards. Your overall thoughts, maybe give a grade as well in terms of the transfer portal class that Kansas is bringing in. And if you think Kansas did an all right job in sort of filling in those gaps that they really needed.
I loved the portal class that KU was able to bring in. It's hard with grade wise because it's like, am I grading it on expectation to what I wanted KU to bring in, or am I grading it on, comparatively to every other college football team? Because then it's like, okay, well, I can't give it an A if I'm comparing it to like what Georgia and Alabama brought in, right? But if I'm just going off the expectations of what I was hoping they would add and stuff, I don't know, probably like a B plus, A minus. I really liked the focus on adding more size, on seemingly becoming a more physical football team. I loved the additions on the defensive line. I thought those were really excellent additions. I feel good about their front seven defensively now. I do have a couple questions on the offensive line, but I haven't got to watch tape on everyone yet. I've at least tried to watch a game or two from some of the different players. And like, I was really impressed with Connor Stroh. I was really impressed with Jalen Dupree. There's still many that I need to get to, but like Trayvon McAlpine, really like that addition. So I liked it overall for KU. I think Nick McMillan is going to be a stud for them. I think there's a chance that McMillan could wind up with the most receiving yards that we've seen of a KU receiver in the Leipold era, which I think 800 would get you to that point. I think he's going to be one of the more complete receivers KU has had on the outside. I thought the Najee Cox addition was really smart in terms of fitting into a certain role for KU. Yassine Willis looks like kind of an athletic freak who can kind of thump you from the running back position. Obviously, Dylan Edwards can be super explosive. I thought they did a really good job of filling holes. I think at this point, my biggest question marks is just how does the offensive line gel? What type of improvement are you going to get from the offensive tackle position with Nick Morrow and Calvin Clemens, who have both played good snaps and are experienced players, but they're going to need both those guys to take a jump forward, I think, in their performance. And then at the back end on the defense, like, I really liked the safety additions they made. They left corner a little more untouched. Obviously, they added Roman Pearson, and then they added Cannon, who's more of kind of a developmental guy. But I think that's the big question. Like, can you have internal improvement? Can the players that are returning take a jump forward? Because if they do, I think the portal additions end up being really good. But if you're relying on these portal additions to be like a bunch of all Big 12 players, I don't know that that's the case. I think they added a lot of solid players, a lot of potential starters, a lot of key contributors, but I don't know that you could count a bunch of like all Big 12 all-star level additions for KU. So that's where the kind of internal development becomes really important.
Yeah, 100%. Also, got to ask you about Andy Kotelnicki. I started covering Kansas when he left, so I've only been here for the Grimes and the Zabrowski era. Obviously, I watched Kotelnicki coach as a fan while I was, at my other jobs, but your thoughts in terms of bringing Andy Kotelnicki back, how huge that is, because obviously it was announced that Kotelnicki will be the one calling the plays. And we know how creative he is and how much he's able to squeeze all the potential out of all the best players out there. Your thoughts on him coming back, as well as, not having Jalen anymore? This is the first time we're seeing a quarterback battle without Jalen Daniels in the Lance Leipold and Kotelnicki era. You have two different quarterbacks where you can see kind of how Andy Kotelnicki might be able to mold Isaiah Marshall, but he could also mold Cole Ballard in a way to kind of fit his style of play. So just talk about, the importance of bringing Andy K back as well as a quarterback battle.
Yeah, I think that it's huge from a standpoint. Like he clearly has a very good, I don't know, creative mind, which is obviously what everybody I think first thinks of. But there really is a level of floor with it too, like the ability to kind of pound the ball and be a tough football team that has creative elements. I think sometimes gets lost there with him. So I think that's huge for KU. I think that there is a bit of an art to the play calling, and I'm really excited that he's coming back specifically as a play caller. I think that'll be a huge boon to KU because he seems to have a good knowledge of when to do things. The quarterback battle will be really interesting because I'm very intrigued by what the potential here for Chase Jenkins is. Like, I know everything publicly has been said that Jenkins is going to be part of the quarterback battle. But is that coach speak, or is that something where like legitimately he could win the job, similar to when KU added Jason Bean? And does it give us a tell it all of how KU wants to play? Because if you're adding a quarterback who specifically was playing in a kind of spread option game, a veer option team like Rice was, does that tell us that that's the type of quarterback and that's the type of offense that KU wants to steer into, more of the 2022 mold of the KU offense when I would say they were kind of breaking out, right? Especially in the early part of the season when you think of the win at West Virginia and the win over Houston and stuff like that. And if that's the case, does that make you believe Isaiah Marshall is going to kind of be the guy, right? Because even though we know Cole Ballard is a good runner, I don't know that he's as explosive as those guys. Whereas with Ballard, you might think of, okay, we're going to use the quarterback run, but maybe it's going to be a little bit more play action or this or that offense. So it'll be interesting too, because you also think about Andy's time at Penn State and specifically the team that made it to the college football playoff semis, and Drew Aller, who was the more he could run a little bit, but more traditionally more of a pocket passer. And they had Bo Pribula as the backup, and they had certain formations and sets where Pribula would come in and be a running quarterback. So maybe that's even something that KU uses with, if Ballard ends up being the starter, do we see Marshall or Jenkins in specific packages for KU? I think the likelihood of seeing all three quarterbacks at some point during the season for KU, I don't know, maybe at least 50-50 or something like that, but it does seem like a true open competition. And it feels like Isaiah Marshall is the fan favorite, the one that fans kind of want to win over the majority here. But I honestly have no idea where it's going to go.
Yeah, a lot of questions to be answered before September 4th, but exciting getting Kotelnicki back and hopefully a couple more wins on the schedule for KU, even though you don't have as many home games. That London trip, of course, a official Kansas home game, Arizona State on September 19th, but important year for Jayhawk football. Derek Johnson, Locked On Jayhawks. Hey, appreciate the time. Have a great rest of the basketball season. We'll catch up with you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, you got it. That's Derek Johnson joining us here on Kansas Nation. Quick shout out to Jefferson's as well, who sponsors our Hanni and the Hawks podcast. More coming up after this. Rock Chalk Sports, ESPN Kansas City, and KansasNation.com. Back in the Kansas Nation studio on Mass Street in downtown Lawrence for Rock Chalk Sports. We're going to hear part one from Bill Self's press conference today very shortly. But first, I want to tell you about our partners over at Custom Lawn and Landscape. If you want a thick, green, healthy lawn this spring, the work starts now. February is a prime month for lawn care. Make sure that you are treating, protecting, and preparing your yard before growing season hits. Of course, that's coming up very shortly. Winter service spots do fill fast, however, so now it's the time to lock in your treatments and your spring lawn programs. Book online today, customlawn.com. Custom Lawn and Landscape. Your best lawn starts here. Again, that's customlawn.com, our partners here at Kansas Nation. All right, let's go to the Allen Fieldhouse Media Room and hear from the two-time national champion who had an additional year finishing as the AP #1 overall team, Bill Self.
Cold in here? It's kind of chilly. It's colder than it was in the arena.
That's true.
It was warm in there, wasn't it?
I'm telling you, the fans shrunk the place. They were so into it. Everybody stood the whole game, and their intensity, they just crowded the court. I've never seen it like that. They shrunk the building. It's incredible. I'm done.
If we had another chair,
Have you gone back and looked at the tape, and to me, it looks like your team played with a ton of heart and just almost like they weren't going to lose that game.
Well, I don't know if it was, there's still a great chance that things won't go your way even when you play hard. But yeah, guys played great, and they played hard and played tough for the most part. And I was obviously very proud of them, and I think that they felt good about themselves. Beating a terrific team. But, we also understand that was Monday and today's Thursday. So there's still bigger things out there, even though that was big at the moment.
You've talked in the past about how competing for the conference feels different now because you don't play everyone home and away. And in fact, the number of teams you do get to play home and away is getting fewer and fewer. How valuable is it now when you do get a chance to play 2 times with a good team like this?
I don't know. I think it's good for your team moving forward. I don't know it makes for the best odds to have success in winning the league, because a lot of winning the league, usually the best team wins it. There's no doubt about that. But there's times that the schedule can skew things to give certain teams maybe a little bit more of an advantage than others, and we have benefited from that in other years. So you get Durant at home instead on the road. So that's part of it. But I think playing Iowa State twice and Arizona twice or Houston twice in the last 2 years, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think that is negative. But when you play those type of teams, the chance to go 6-0 aren't very good either. So
I'm curious. We don't see him at practice, and obviously had a lot of health issues this year. Do you think there's another level to Darren's athleticism or burst that we haven't seen because of some of the stuff that's happened this year?
I don't know that there's another level of burst than the play he made in the first half against BYU.
Yeah, the BYU game is
this is I'm not a social media guy, but I have gotten on X and read some of the things and narratives that are out there about him, and it's really not remotely true. The thing about it is, when you're honest, people don't believe you. And when you tell and you don't comment on it, people create their own narratives. And you know what? I do the same thing about things I don't know about. Well, it must be this, geez, it has to be that if they're not going to talk about it. But here's the bottom line. Was his hamstring legit? Hell yes. Would you risk injuring it more in November? No. Was his cramping legit? Yes, positively it was. Did he turn his ankle bad to the point where he couldn't practice for 9 days and then practice 1 day to play BYU? Yes. And that was adrenaline kicking in the BYU game. And then, of all things, he gets sick. And this is what blows my mind. Well, he didn't play because he's sick, isn't a big deal. But he didn't play because he was sick when he didn't play the other games, added together becomes a big deal in people's minds. He's got a string of bad luck. But was he sick? Yeah, he's sick enough he couldn't practice. But he said he was still gonna give it a run.
Yeah.
And he came to shoot around and he gave it a run. And he went out before and he gets lightheaded and I walk in and the doctor says, Bill, you're not gonna be able to go. But the negative is that people saw him out there. What could have happened between being out there and not playing?
Yeah.
Bottom line is he was just trying to see if he could go. I mean, if he wanted to run from it or hide from it, he wouldn't have gone out there. So the narrative is BS in many ways. I'm not sure. Load management. This kid hadn't talked about that one time or anything. Load management. Geez, that's when you play 4 games in 7 days. That's not when you play, 1/2 a week or anything like that. So those aren't true. The narratives have at least some of the ones I saw are inaccurate. But the whole thing is it's true. He's really sick. Is he better today? Yeah, he was out there yesterday. Was he full speed? No. Was he full speed today? No. I'm hoping he can be closer to full speed tomorrow, and hopefully he can be full speed on Saturday. But that's what he's dealing with, and it's a lot. I would think when you're 19 years old and you're dealing with everybody having a narrative about everything that's going on, or you're sitting on the bench and you got heat warmers on your legs or whatever, and now everybody's got a narrative about a heat warmer. I mean, but that's what he's dealing with, and that's the world he's getting ready to enter. But the narratives have been accurate.
And I also wanted to ask, I mean, you've talked a lot about Florey's defense, and you've seen a lot of great defensive players come through Kansas. Do you see any similarities with him and Doak and the way they play on the defensive end?
No.
No?
I do see similarities in Doak was so athletic that he could switch ball screens, late clock, and stuff like that, but not to the level that Florey can. He was a really, really athletic, 7 foot, 250-pound dude. Florey's not near that big, but shot blocking, Florey's a better shot blocker. There's no doubt about that. But Florey was a bigger post presence just because he's so physically big. But I think that there's some similarities in that they're both really good at it, but they were both different in how they did it.
Specifically after this Arizona win, just want to get your kind of view on this team and seeing the players celebrate with the fans. It really feels like the fans love the players, but the players also love the fans, and that feels maybe different than teams we've seen maybe recently.
Well, I get a kick out of this. Teams that we've seen recently, like we're talking about decades of whatever. We had a bad year by our standards last year. Year before, we would have been a 2 seed if Kevin hadn't got hurt. I mean, we lost an All-American for the last month of the season. Last year was a down year by our standards, without question. We still had an average year by a lot of standards, but it wasn't Kansas levels year. I also think that so much of this, and I talked about this with our guys. One wasn't a vocal guy. KJ wasn't a vocal guy. Hunt was a vocal guy in controversial type ways. which made everybody have an opinion on him. You know, isn't it amazing about the media and social media? You want people to be opinionated and expressive, and then when they are and things don't work out perfect, now it's time that we can really cash in on those guys. Hunt was great. He was a great, unbelievable teammate. Took less than, probably made 30 cents on the dollar here compared to what he could make anywhere else. People don't know that. That's the fact. And so, but we weren't as good. Pieces didn't fit as well. The guys still love KU and they still tried hard. But trying hard with personality looks different. And this team's got personality. And so to your point, do I think that we're enjoying it more? Absolutely. And did I know that they went out and celebrated with the fans? Absolutely not. Although I wouldn't care, but I don't know any of that stuff. That's stuff that they do on their own, and a lot of that is spearheaded by Melvin, which, you know, I love that. He's going to soak in every minute he can in these places.
That's the Hall of Famer Bill Self at the podium a little bit earlier today at Allen Fieldhouse. We will hear part 2 of that tomorrow on Rock Chalk Sports. KU Iowa State, Saturday at noon. Coverage will start on Sports Radio 810 WHB and across the Jayhawk Radio Network at 10:30. We're actually going to be doing our Jayhawk Locker Room show from right here in the Kansas Nation studio. So looking forward to kicking it with David Lawrence. David's got a double dip again on Saturday as he will head over to Fog Allen Fieldhouse to call the Kansas women as they battle Houston 4 o'clock on Saturday. Support the Kansas women as they need to roll off ideally all 4 of their final 4 games and be in the NCAA tournament conversation. After this, we're talking Kansas football, some dates to note for this upcoming season. We're talking Jerome Tang, obviously.
Drinking that Tang.
And some other Big 12 chatter as well. Rock Chalk Sports, KansasNation.com, ESPN, Kansas City. Huge shout out to Elijah Schmidt, who, believe it or not, Dan, runs the operations here at Kansas Nation. Appreciate the blood, sweat, and tears that he puts into this production and the production, Dan, of our Kansas Nation podcast network, which involves legends of Kansas. Chris Harris and Brandon McAnderson, Hanni and the Hawks, where Brian Hanni catches up with a KU player of old. We've got the Jayhawker podcast. Check out KansasNation.com for the most recent episodes of the Jayhawker podcast. Travis Goff, Melvin Council, they sit down with Nate Bukaty and more coming up. Plus, we've got Between Two Fountains, where there's 2 guys and 2 fountains, and they are between them. Mick Schaefer and Greg Gurley. You want to check that out. And, of course, Timeout with Tyshawn Taylor as well. All a part of our Kansas Nation podcast network, as is our Rock Chalk Sports podcast, which is daily. Check us out on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. We appreciate any likes, subscriptions that you have. Game day coverage, any sort of updates for KU, not just basketball and football, but softball, baseball, whatever you want to see. You can check out KansasNation.com for the best coverage. All right, well, first off, we got to wave some wheat, as there's a certain energy that comes with Jayhawk basketball, the crowd rising together, the band playing, and that unmistakable moment where fans rise and wave the wheat. It's a tradition that represents pride, unity, and Jayhawk spirit. With Jayhawk checking from Central Bank, that tradition does not stop when the game ends. Jayhawk fans can carry their pride with them wherever they go with the official Jayhawk debit card, a simple way to show school spirit every day. Central Bank is proud to support the traditions and communities that bring people together. As the proud community banking partner of the University of Kansas, Central Bank is committed to serving Jayhawk fans with banking options designed for real life, on campus, at work, and everywhere in between. So if you're ready to wave the wheat beyond the stands, learn more about Jayhawk Checking and the exclusive debit card at jayhawkchecking.com. That's jayhawkchecking.com. Central Bank, the proud community banking partner of the University of Kansas. Member FDIC. All right, shout out to our partners at Central Bank. Dan, some Kansas football news regarding the schedule. Let's get into that.
Yes, some KU football news just announced earlier today. KU, they have set the dates for homecoming and Family Weekend. Family Weekend is going to be October 3rd against Middle Tennessee State. So be sure to mark your calendars for that. Any parents of any of the students, I'm sure they'll be going to that one as well. Should be a lot of fun. And then homecoming is going to be October 24th. To me, does that feel a little early to you? Maybe I'm just looking at this weird because Arizona State is in front of the Middle Tennessee State game, but you got two. Essentially, you go Middle Tennessee, and then you got Utah, K-State, and then homecoming, right? And then you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games after that. Now, granted, you only have 3 home games in conference play to be able to do that, so fitting it in would be a little tough. But you think maybe November 7th against UCF could be potentially homecoming?
Yeah, who knows?
Maybe,
Obviously, that would be the only other option realistically because BYU is senior day.
Right, that's the thing. It's, you know, so I guess in terms of that, I do understand it, but really exciting, and this also gives us a reason to kind of revisit the upcoming schedule for KU football. We talked about KU football with Derek Johnson from the Locked On Jayhawk podcast, but the season starts September 4th against Long Island University, the Sharks.
LIU.
Is there any other... question. Are there any other Sharks that are in college?
Way, right? Kind of like there's no other Vaqueros.
Oh, there's no other Jayhawks.
That's true.
Look this up. Because there's the San Jose Sharks, right? That they're a professional team.
Right. But yeah, in Division I don't think there are. Long Island, also a great beverage.
Yes, Long Island iced tea. Man, oh man. Shout out
used to throw those back.
Shout out to Brothers.
It's Brothers. Yeah, but those weren't the real ones. Those were
I know, but they would come in a big fishbowl.
Yeah.
They're great.
A real Long Island where you actually put the amount of booze that you're supposed into, I mean, that'll knock your socks off.
I remember when I was a bartender, people would ask for a Long Island iced tea, and I was like, well, okay, well, and I would look up what was in it, and it was just the kitchen sink.
Yeah.
And then like
a splash of Coke.
It was a splash of sweet and sour.
Yep.
And then a splash of Coke as well. I was like, there's no way. And I literally, I'd have a glass and I'd make him a glass. If the glass is this big, I'd give him that much booze.
Yeah.
And it was just, I was like, are you guys
You don't need
sure?
too many of them.
No, usually I wouldn't see them after I would make the first one.
Right.
Usually they'd be throwing up in a car somewhere and I would be like, sorry, I don't know what to tell you. Shout out to Long Island. Long Island, the one of my favorite iced tea makers that they have. But yeah, that's going to kick it off. Obviously, the capacity is going to be different. I would imagine they'll probably get the lower bowl done. They're going to be working on the upper bowl during next season. It's going to be probably in the 30,000s, I would say, for capacity. But Mizzou's going to be there the 2 weeks after that, September 12th. That's going to be a big game, massive game. That one's going to be for sure sold out just with the limited capacity and, Mizzou coming into town. That probably was going to be sold out anyway. Mizzou's going to be probably down this year. Then you got Arizona out in London, which, by the way, in the works right now. I think I'm going to be going to that game.
Good.
So
that'll be awesome because you can get us a lot of coverage for KansasNation.com.
Yeah, a lot of content for that one.
Yeah.
So it's funny. Me and my fiance actually talked about this. It kind of coincided when because we were talking about honeymoons and she was like, let's just wait and let's go to Europe and you can go to the KU game and then she'll mess around London for a day.
Interesting.
And then after that, I'm going to take a week off, maybe hit up Italy, maybe go kind of bounce around Europe a little bit.
Is that so?
And take a nice little European honeymoon.
Interesting. I'm more of a beach guy myself.
See, that's
exciting.
I'm more of a beach guy as well, but also when am I ever going to get the chance to see a KU football game in London again?
That's true.
You know what I mean?
That's true.
So it's I got to go. And if I'm going, you might as well make a whole thing out of it.
Well, bottom line is you can expect great content on KansasNation.com because Dan will be devoting a lot of time to work while he's over there.
It'll be a long week for you, though. After that, because I'm going to be gone. You can call me.
That's all right. Yeah, you know what? I'll call you. I'll miss you. Yeah, it'll be a long week because of how much I'll miss you. Yeah, but no game after that game on the 19th. Looking at the schedule, though, and shout out to the Baylor game on October 24th. The 114th homecoming for Kansas, also presented by Central Bank. So shout out to Central Bank.
Shout out.
Yeah, Long Island, that's got to be a win to open the season September 4th. Then Mizzou, September 12th. Win. You got Middle Tennessee. That needs to be a win on October 3rd. So obviously the Mizzou game is going to be tough. I kid, but a one that is very important that you win for a lot of reasons. But if Kansas is able to win those, then there's 3 wins right there. And then your home games in the Big 12 slate, we don't really know, Dan, but if we just break this down home and away, we never know how teams are actually going to be.
Right.
Because you can read in the portal classes, you have no idea. So much to the point where the Big 12 got rid of the preseason poll. But Baylor, UCF, BYU, I mean, we feel good about this Kansas roster to the point where, hey, let's find a way to win games at home. KU had too many heartbreakers at home in the initial season of the booth, obviously with Cincinnati and Utah coming to mind. So hopefully that's not the case this year. Baylor, UCF, they were middling teams in the conference. BYU, obviously a top-tier team, but opportunity at home, you get 6 at home, 1, which is technically a home game in London, and then it's always tough when you go on the road.
Yeah, for sure. And, Baylor's going to be tough. Like you said, you never know. But Baylor did get DJ Lagway, right? So that's right there. We know how good of a quarterback he is. Florida fans always like to talk trash, but also whenever your quarterback leaves, they're going to be talking trash and they're going to pick apart the bad things about your game. DJ Lagway is still a really good quarterback, so that's going to be important. But obviously, when teams get new quarterbacks, it's going to be a brand new team. So we don't know how Baylor is going to be this year. UCF, they were towards the bottom in terms of transfer portal additions. They weren't very good last year. Kansas went down to Orlando and beat them in a excellent game last year. Kansas with a couple of big time stops in the red zone against UCF. So you feel good about that win. And then BYU, they're going to be probably middling as well. So we'll certainly see. Bear Bachmeier is going to be back. So that's of note. But BYU losing a lot of key players as well. And hopefully at that point, Kansas is looking at hopefully, 6 wins or better. And if they're not around there, you think Kansas is probably going to show up in a big way for that game too. But your away games are not going to be easy, right? You're at K-State. That's going to be tough. It's in Manhattan. Kansas is going to have a lot of fans there. I get that, but still, it's never easy going out to Manhattan. Utah, that one's going to be tough. New coach, I get it. A lot of turnover from Utah. Obviously, is Kyle Whittingham now the head coach at Michigan. So who knows how that's going to be, but obviously Salt Lake City going out there, it's going to be a tough travel day. You're at altitude, so that could be a factor as well. You're at TCU. TCU could be really good. Josh Hoover has left and gone to Indiana. So, again, you have a new quarterback there. West Virginia, they were not good last year whatsoever. And then you're at Oklahoma State to close it out. Who knows with Oklahoma State, right? I mean, you got in the North Texas coach. You got in the top producing passer of last year and Drew Mestemaker coming in. You're bringing in a lot of guys for Oklahoma State, closing out the season at a point when Oklahoma State will know who they are and Kansas will know who they are. That one's going to be really tough. You would probably want to see Oklahoma State maybe earlier in the year just to kind of get them on their heels when they're still figuring themselves out as a team. Same with a lot of these teams too. I mean, look, Oklahoma State's had a lot of turnover. Kansas is having a lot of turnover as well. Kansas is going to have a new quarterback. They're going to have all new weapons at wide receiver. They're going to have all new running backs. They're going to have a virtually, brand new linebacker room. So a lot of different guys, but you feel confident about the guys that Kansas is going to be bringing in. But obviously, it starts September 4th against Long Island. Hopefully, you go, you show up. You lay the hammer down, and then next is Mizzou. That is a marquee win, not even in terms of rivalry aspect, but if you're hosting an SEC school week 2 and you go out and you beat them with not only, like I said, with all of these new players, with the new quarterback, with the new play caller, I say new, but Andy Kotelnicki was here a couple years ago. You go out there and win that's a tone setter for the rest of the season, right? If you go out and lose a heartbreaker, that also could be a tone setter. And we've seen Kansas time and time again over these last couple of years where Kansas just let everybody down and they weren't able to close these games out. So if you're able to prove to Kansas fans that you're able to close this game out and you're able to prove to yourself as players that Kansas is able to close these games out, I'm looking at the Mizzou game right now. Again, not just because it's Mizzou. That also is a factor, but that is going to be probably the biggest game of the year just in terms of setting the tone for what is to come.
Yeah, and you had them beat last year. You felt like you had them beat in Como and couldn't get it done. You got to win this game, and, man, what a great opportunity. Whoever wins the quarterback job at Kansas to knock off the hated rivals from the Show Me State. All right, that's Kansas football news for today. Again, family weekend is going to be October 3rd, KU football against Middle Tennessee State, and homecoming is going to be October 24th when Baylor comes to town. All right, let's talk a little Big 12 basketball here to close out the show. K-State last night gets absolutely crushed at home by Cincinnati. Now, got killed a couple weeks ago at home by Iowa State, but that's Iowa State. They've been in the top 10 all season long. Cincinnati walks into the Little Apple with a 12-12 record. They're up 53-31 at halftime. They win 91-62. But what's most interesting, Dan, the post-game press conference, Jerome Tang, and I wish we were able to cut this for you. Jerome Tang goes to the podium and essentially says that his players don't deserve to wear this jersey. I mean, I can't think of a time, I'm sure it's happened maybe, where a coach has said that about players. And it really bothers me when a coach in good times uses the word we and talks about how we have success, we have done this, we did that really well. But in bad times, it's they, talking about the players. And Coach Jerome Tang, who's been on the hottest of hot seats, says these guys, they don't deserve to wear the K-State jerseys. Yeah. I mean, you talk about culture being at an all-time low. We're on the outside. We don't know, but that's what it seems like. You had fans wearing brown paper sacks over their faces at the Octagon of Doom as a middling Cincinnati team goes in and just completely destroys K-State. And I don't know, to me, it sounded like a coach that wants to be fired saying that, because you can't say that and keep your job, at least in my opinion.
100%, right? And, you had the brown paper bags. You've had, and here's the thing about K-State. He can't even use the complaint of, well, we just don't have the resources. You want to talk about resources, they've spent a lot of money on talent. And PJ Haggerty's putting up a lot of points this year, but it's not getting them anywhere. You look at last year, they spent $2 million on Coleman Hawkins. Where did that get them? Bottom tier of the Big 12. Doug McDaniel, still $1.5 million. Bottom tier of the Big 12. PJ Haggerty's making a lot of money this year. They're still at the bottom tier of the Big 12. And, when you're Jerome Tang refusing to take any accountability whatsoever, because that has been the story, is you have the players. You have top caliber players. You're spending a lot of money. Your donors are giving you this money to go out and get the talent. You are acquiring this talent, and you're getting killed at home against a terrible Cincinnati
team. They've
team.
had their issue with injuries as well, but my issue is mainly the accountability.
Yeah.
He talked about this after they lost to West Virginia, blaming the NCAA, saying they haven't given him a chance to build a program.
Right. Oh, remember when he blamed Iowa State for spying on him? That was last year?
I mean, it's been everything in the book.
Yeah.
And as we talked about, and I know you have some details on the buyout situation with Coach Tang, I mean, it's going to be a pretty penny to get Tang out of Manhattan. But at this point, with everything he said, everything that's transpired, it's hard to see Tang coaching there next season.
Well, he talked about it in the post-game press conference. By the way, he only limited them to 2 questions, which again, dude, face the media, man. You can't limit the media to 2 questions after you get killed like that. But he comes out and says, this was an embarrassing loss, embarrassing for the university. These guys don't deserve to wear the uniform. And then he said, after that, a lot of guys won't be wearing this uniform next year, insinuating that he's going to be kicking guys off the team. Dude.
It's a weird thing to say.
That's an insane thing to say. He also said they're going to have a 6 a.m. practice today. I wonder how that went. I'm sure that was
right.
Super fun. But the lack of accountability that we've seen, not only just in this press conference, but in the Jerome Tang era, like you said, there's words that are said, and as a media member, you can pick these out whenever these happen, but you said it best. Whenever things are going good for K-State, he's saying, oh yeah, we did a good job. Yeah, no, we were great tonight. Whenever they have a bad game, they were just bad. They were bad. Those players that were out there on the court, they sucked. It's not me. The story of Jerome Tang, and I'm pretty sure this is universal, is you're the exact opposite of Bruce Weber. Bruce Weber was a hell of a coach and a terrible recruiter. Jerome Tang, great recruiter, terrible coach. And to me, he's a snake oil salesman. He sells these guys on a lot of money and pride in the organization. And, hey, here's a blank check. Come and play at Kansas State. And I have an Elite 8 in my back pocket, so we're going to be good. They've only made the tournament once in the last 7 years.
Yeah. Well, we'll put a cap on the Tang talk there because it's too much. It's not really our
I feel
our
like we didn't do enough laughing there. I feel like this is a laughable situation
right now. How about what Joe Lunardi posted on Twitter a little bit earlier in the day? He's got Kansas right now still on the 3 line. And you should see some of these comments, which are all basically either Jayhawk fans or college basketball fans who are just trying to figure out why this is the case. He's got Iowa State still on the 2 line as 8 overall. He's got Florida, a team that beat unranked Georgia at 9th overall, and Kansas at 10th overall after beating number 1 Arizona. Some of these comments are great. Kansas beats Arizona and drops. Florida beat unranked Georgia, so I think they move over Kansas even though they beat Arizona. Joe. Purdue, Iowa State, and Nebraska being ahead of Kansas is just absurd. Kansas moves down after beating number 1, and Florida moves ahead for beating Georgia. Kansas drops after beating Zona. Nice, bud. Kansas didn't just beat the number 1 team. They did it without the best player in college basketball, and they drop. This is brainless. KU drops after beating Arizona without best player. Sheesh. A lot of comments, and it makes sense to me. Kansas, especially when you look at the fact that other teams lost, like Illinois. He's still got Illinois at 6th overall, by the way, on the 2 line. So, okay, I guess you don't want to drop them behind KU. And Nebraska is at 11 overall, so 1 spot behind Kansas, because he'll give the top 4 seeds, and then he'll give where they're at overall. So right now, Lunardi's number 1 seeds. Arizona is number 1-1, then Michigan, then Duke, then UConn. Those are the 1 seeds. The 2 seeds, he's got Purdue. In order, he's got Houston, Illinois, Purdue, and Iowa State. So he's got 2 Big 12 teams on the 2 line. Houston's still not on the 1 line, which there's probably a conversation. I haven't dived into the resumes enough of Houston versus a UConn or a Duke, for instance, but definitely surprised that Kansas didn't go up to a 2 line or improve at all after defeating Arizona. That seems very, very strange. Kansas is ahead of Gonzaga, Texas Tech, and like I said, now slightly ahead of Nebraska as well, but Florida jumps them. That's a surprising move.
It is a surprising move. And, Florida has some good players, but Florida has not been Florida, at least what we saw last year with Florida, who won the national title. They've lost a couple of stinkers. Now, Kansas, I don't know how much any of the previous losses are going to affect this Kansas team in terms of seeding, right? Because you look down the line, Kansas has won 8 in a row. Impressive wins for Kansas, those 8 in a row. But they still have a couple of stains on the record with UCF in North Carolina, or not North Carolina, UCF in West Virginia.
CBS Sports also has Kansas on the 3 line for what it's worth. So there's work to be done if Kansas wants to move up to that 2, where Iowa State still is for CBS. Iowa State loses at TCU. That's not a better loss, if you want to put it that way, any stretch than UCF or even West Virginia, I would argue, as those teams are all in the middle of the conference. But yeah, we have to wait and see as bracketology will work itself out, and both of those were done this morning. So Kansas still on the 3 line on both CBS and ESPN, but a lot of people wondering why KU isn't a little bit higher, at least to Joe Lunardi on Twitter. We'll continue to break that down. Big weekend ahead. Big show tomorrow on Rock Chalk Sports. We're going to hear more from Bill Self. Shreyas Latta will join the show in studio as well. I want to shout out Elijah Schmidt for running the operations today and every day here at the Kansas Nation studio. For Dan Courtwright, Sean Kellerman saying we'll catch you tomorrow for Rock Chalk Sports, 4 to 6, ESPN Kansas City, kansasnation.com.